Boom, shellac, lock, boom. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live coming to you broadcasting on some really cool platforms called Facebook and YouTube. Maybe you've heard of them. Not sure. My name is John Tedora. They call me the Sports Trader. And joining me in the little tiny box to my left over there is a man that they call the Sports Nerd. He used to work at Fox Sports, but now he works over at What's on Sports. His name is Lance Fernandez. Lance, how are you today, buddy?
John, this is the time that I'm really missing football. You know, we are weeks separated from Super Bowl 55. Good thing that there are off-season news that keeps us into the thick of things. But really, I can't wait for the new season starts around September.
Yeah, you know, I got to give the NFL credit, and I always say this. And actually, you did a good piece on it, or we talked about you doing a great piece on it, and then you ended up doing it and talking about like how the NFL is better than any other sport anywhere. Any other, really, to me, any of the programming at keeping people engaged in what's going on, even when there's no shows on. So when there's no games going on, people are still talking about what could happen in the upcoming season. Now, obviously, we made it through the Super Bowl. Now we're into what could be the beginning of free agency, which is usually like kind of jump starts the league. There used to be kind of a break between the Super Bowl and free agency, but now there's all sorts of like things that happen in between that keeps the NFL pretty like in the center of everyone's attention. Whatever rumors going on, now we got this quarterback thing this year. We've got the pre free agent period salary cap casualties, which we'll be talking about later on, and lots of other good stuff that we're going to go into. Before we do, though, I just want to remind everybody that we have a brand new thing over at whatsonsports.com. It's called the it's called the $2 Sports Club. If you join the $2 Sports Club today, you're going to get lots of really cool content, including all the content that we put out, even our exclusive VIP content. You'll get gambling news. You'll get daily fantasy news. You'll get all the inside information on MMA, NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL. Everything's over there, guys. It's all for only $2 at the What's on Sports website. Go over there right now and join the $2 Sports Club. It's a great way to support what we do. It's also a great way for you to educate yourself. Now, inside the $2 Sports Club, you're also going to get some really cool stuff, including a seminar that I'll be putting on once a month about sports trading. You get my brand new book, which is The Score Metric Secret, that teaches you all about sports trading. And also, we're going to have a special guest inside there this month, Michael Franzese, who's a very popular, very famous mafia boss turned into kind of an evangelist slash public speaker. Michael's going to be in there doing a seminar on sports gambling and how the mafia was involved in the gambling. Now, and after the seminar, anybody who attends will be able to ask Michael Franzese lots of really cool questions. So you guys are invited to go over there and be a part of that. Now, before we dive into anything else, as much as this isn't like huge news, Lance, this is actually like a really interesting topic that I saw. Yesterday, a video came out of Cam Newton at his own football camp. And we're going to talk about that in just a few seconds. I just want to touch on it really quick because I thought it was kind of controversial. Anybody that hasn't seen it will definitely want to talk about it. Stick around and talk about it. But before we do that, we're going to do some quick fire news, get everybody caught up on everything that's happened around the sports scene. Sports Nerd, it's all you. It's time for some quick fire news.
Okay, so first off, business news related to the NFL. So you might know Jeff Bezos, John, former CEO of Amazon. So he is interested actually to buy minority stock from the Washington football team. Now, Dan Snyder is alleging some of the minority owners of going up against him for him to be forced to sell the majority stock of the team. Ooh. So with Jeff Bezos potentially entering the Washington football team, do you see a possibility of him being a majority owner of that franchise?
Look, it's really hard if you don't understand how a company works, it's really hard for minority owners of stock in a company to push out a majority owner. It's the reason you keep the majority of your shares. So your minority owners can be as upset as they want to be, but their option at the end of the day is really just to sell their minority shares. Dan Snyder loves the Washington football team. He has not done a good job of being an owner of the team, if you would like my opinion on that matter. But Dan Snyder is the owner. He is the majority shareholder. And I don't see Bezos having an opportunity to really get in there and pry the Washington football team away from him. Now, with all that being said, at the end of the day, as much of a sports fan as Dan Snyder is, as much as Dan Snyder may truly love owning the Washington Redskins, among other things that he owns, Dan Snyder's a businessman. So if the price is right, and the buyer can afford it, and I believe Jeff Bezos can pretty much afford anything he wants to. If he goes in and makes the right deal, Jeff Bezos very well could very possibly become the majority owner of the Washington Redskins. Now, I don't know where Dan Snyder's head is. I don't know what he's thinking. But as a businessman myself, I try not to get emotionally attached to the things that I own. And I've sold several businesses without any issue at all. Now, I'm not going to say when I sold those businesses, I didn't have a moment of like, oh, man, I can't believe I sold that business. It's happened. But at the end of the day, if you offer me enough money, just about anything except my family is for sale. So will it happen? Probably not. Could it happen? It could, Lance. It very well could.
Yeah, I believe that Dan Snyder, being the intelligent businessman that he is, I mean, he wouldn't reach his stature right now if he did not do good business dealings along the way. So could he ask for some Amazon stock in exchange for the Washington football team as well? Ooh. So that could be the question. And you know how valuable those Amazon stocks are in exchange for the football team that, let's face it, he did not run in the best of his interest and in the best of the fans' interest for nearly 2 decades. So it's time for a revamp in Washington, a new ownership, a new breath of fresh air, and start things anew for that franchise.
Yeah, it's a tough one, though. You know, anybody that buys a football team, first of all, you've got a tremendous amount of money. I mean, you've got just a shit ton of money. You're not buying a football team because it's going to be your sole source of income. You're buying a football team because that's a surplus money that you have. And it's not only is it a good investment, but you think to yourself, I can own a football team. I'm a huge football fan. I'm a sports fan. You look at Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban doesn't live off the Dallas Mavericks. Mark Cuban lives off the many businesses that he has. The Dallas Mavericks just happen to be one of them. Now, also, I don't know what I don't know the numbers, but let's just say that Dan Snyder bought the Redskins 10 years ago. Over the course of 10 years, I would imagine that team has maybe jumped up in value by 50%. So if he bought it for $300 million, it could very well easily be worth $500 million or even $1 billion. I don't know. Was there an evaluation on the Redskins? Did anybody throw one out there that like maybe something we can go by?
Yeah, we can check on that a little bit later. So
all right. Yeah, I mean, look, if you knew the number, I think that's where the information would really come into, I'll tell you this, like you look at somebody like a family like the Rooneys. The Rooneys do have in Pittsburgh, they do have other businesses, but of course they are the majority shareholders in the Pittsburgh Steelers. What people don't realize is even though the Rooneys are majority shareholders, there are a lot of people who actually own the Steelers. There are people who actually have come in over the last 20 years, paid a small amount of money to buy a piece of the Steelers, and then sold their shares to somebody else. Now, the way that works is the majority shareholder gets an opportunity to say yes or no as to who they can sell their shares to because it's not publicly traded. They're privately traded stocks. So it's a little bit different. Now, I don't know how Green Bay works. I know Green Bay, a lot of the people that live in the town have invested in the Green Bay Packers. Completely different story. But it'd be interesting to know the actual value of the Washington Redskins. Did you pull that up?
I'm trying to look at it right now,
okay.
But
all right,
let's
I'm going to guess they're worth $1.2 billion. That's
I
my
believe
guess.
not. So we had this article before in What's on Sports, and if I'm not mistaken, so here's the range of where Washington is. So the highest valued franchise in the NFL are the Dallas Cowboys, and they're about $6 billion. $6 billion. Yes. And then the lowest valued franchise are the Tennessee Titans, which goes around $2.5 billion. So somewhere along that line, 2.5 to 6 are the Washington football team. So
really?
It could be closer to 2.5. It could be closer to 6.
Yeah, so I just Googled it really quick on my phone. The approximate U.S. value of the Washington football team is $3.4 billion.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Talk about inflation,
That's crazy. Siri, what did Dan Snyder buy the Washington football team for? There's your real question right there. What did Dan Snyder pay? So what did Dan Snyder man, I got fat fingers. Snyder pay for the Redskins.
Okay. Here's a quick fact. So in 1999, Snyder bought the Redskins for $750 million. $350 million of it is borrowed money. So $400 million is his own.
Right. So If you could buy something for $750 million and sell it for $3.5 billion 20 years later, I would say that 5 times your money is an incredible investment. I think if Jeff Bezos walks up and says, I will pay X amount of dollars for your shares, I think Dan Snyder leaves. And I think that the Washington Redskins are better for it. Dan Snyder has not run a good operation, and I do not think he should be the owner of the Washington Redskins anymore. Now, with that being said, who the hell am I to say whether he should be the owner of the Redskins or not? I'm a Steeler fan. I'm happy that the Redskins are not the Washington football team is not a good team because it's just less teams that are actually good. Now, I will say this, though, really quick. Snyder's made some really good moves. I think the coach that he hired is a good coach. I think they've done a better job drafting. I think they've done a better job overall of putting a team together. I thought the Redskins were on the come up last year. And if they continue to go in that direction, I think the Redskins could actually be a team, especially in the division they're in. They can go 6-0 in that division easily. It's not a good division. So as of right now, I think the Redskins are in a decent place. And if I'm Dan Snyder and we're on the come up like this and I see us in our trajectory shooting straight up, I'm not selling. So what else you got? What else you got for news today?
Could increase the value of the franchise even more. So on to more business news of the NFL. So the NFL is actually asking for, picture this, 100% increase in TV rights deals from all of its partners. So just imagine, Disney agreed to pay for Monday Night Football in 2011 for $1.9 billion. So the NFL is now asking for 3.8 at least. So that's a 100% increase.
Gosh.
And that goes across the board to all of their partner networks, CBS, Fox, everyone. So how would this affect the NFL coverage from 2021 and beyond?
We got our first person logging into the chat, by the way. This is from whose name I can't read. Sorry about that, buddy. I know it's in a different language here. I believe that's Arabic, and I cannot read it. I do apologize. But hello to you out there as well.
Yeah, hello to you as well.
Yeah, listen, what were we just talking about? I'm sorry, I got distracted by the
100% increase of TV
rights. Oh, yeah.
So,
that is ridiculous. So you think about Monday Night Football. Monday Night Football is 16 shows. Like, that's all it is. It's 16 TV shows. So for 16 TV shows, you're suggesting that the price could be as much as $3.8 billion? Yes. Is that what you said?
Yeah, 100% increase. They paid 1.9 in 2011.
It's impossible. It's impossible that they can make that kind of money. I mean, I don't know what the revenue is when you from ESPN or ABC or whoever's going to carry the show this year, but I don't know what the revenue is. But it is impossible to imagine that each game could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue brought in. I just cannot believe that that's possible. $3.8 billion is ridiculous. Ridiculous. That's $200+ million every game that needs to be sold in commercials. I just don't see that being something that they can do. I get it's a 3-hour show. I get it's a lot of commercials. I just don't know, man. I don't know what a TV commercial costs on a national show like that. I just don't know. And I just cannot possibly believe they can afford that. The NFL's in a pickle, though. They've got to charge more for their TV rights because they're not sure when they're going to be allowed to. They're not sure when they're going to be allowed to actually put people in the seats and make money. Sorry, I'm reading the chat at the same time. We got a chat from Not LeBron James saying, so much money for a bunch of adult men playing ball and getting dirty. Yeah, that must be a girl. It's got to be a girl. She doesn't appreciate the product. Sorry, Not LeBron James. We're confident that you're a woman for some reason. But it is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. What else you got today?
So it's like having a Super Bowl every Monday. So just because of the ad rates that you put out. So how do you recuperate profit out of that? 3.8 billion. Well,
look, you're paying $3.8 million for the rights to broadcast the show. That does not count what it costs to produce the actual show. So you've got to fly in a whole crew. You got to set up everything. You got to hire. You're probably hiring people from like local area. You've got to have gaffers. You got to have a sound crew. You got to have people to work the cameras. You got to have people to work the booth. You got to have people the actual video booth. You got to have the actual talent who does the show and not announces the games. It's a ridiculous cost for them. It probably costs them $2 million a game just to actually put the crew there. I mean,
Yes.
I'm going to guess probably $3-4 million just to get people there, do the whole setup, broadcasting this thing over satellite. That's just crazy. It's insane to me.
Yeah.
Insane. What else you got today?
Okay, so on to lighter news. So Michael Pittman Jr. So he's wearing number
Nice.
11 for the Indianapolis Colts, and apparently there's a new number 11 in town, quote unquote, and that's new quarterback Carson Wentz. But Michael Pittman is adamant not to give up the number 11, and they already had a discussion, him and Wentz, that Wentz is actually cool not having that jersey number. So is this a big deal, jersey numbers for NFL players, that we really have to talk to it about it in the quickfire news section?
Well, look, this is how it works. New guy comes on the team. He's a veteran. He's a big name guy. Usually he goes to whoever has the number that he wants. Says, hey, look, I know you got the number. I'll give you 50 grand for the number. I'll give you 20 grand for the number, whatever. It's usually some type of business deal. He buys the number off the guy. Michael Pittman is presenting this as if, from everything that I read, Michael Pittman is presenting this as if Michael Pittman said no, as if he said, I don't want to put this. I don't want the guy to wear a jersey. I'm going to wear it. Let me point out a few things. Michael Pittman's been in the league for 1 year. He was okay last year. He wasn't a superstar last year. He was okay. Tremendous amount of potential. Super talented young man. I think he's going to be a real surefire star in the league one day, but he's not right now. And Carson Wentz actually kind of is. Carson Wentz is a guy making $25 million a year. Carson Wentz is a guy that they just put up a third rounder for and a possible first rounder for. Carson Wentz is a guy who's being brought in to be the franchise player. He's going to be the guy that's on the program in Indianapolis. He's going to be the guy that's going to be the car dealerships are going to want to use as a sponsor in sponsorships. This is the guy there. And he's also the guy, if I need to remind Michael Pittman, who's got to be the dumbest guy in the NFL, he's also the guy that's going to be throwing the ball to Michael Pittman. So why would you not reach out? Like last year, the exact same thing happened in Tampa Bay. Godwin had number 12. Mm-hmm. So Tom Brady shows up, and Godwin, without even saying anything, says, Tom Brady gets the number. Of course he gets the number. He's Tom Brady. He's going to be my quarterback. Why in the world would I start off my relationship with my brand new quarterback by saying, you don't get something you want? I don't understand the logic behind Mr. Pittman. He's a young guy. That was a bad decision on his part. That's my opinion. How you feeling about that? You think you should just say, screw you, I'm going to keep it, or what?
So I do admire Michael Pittman's bravery for standing up to what he think is quote unquote right. But in between quarterback versus wide receiver in a quarterback driven league. So wide receivers do not have leverage, especially with this kind of stuff, especially with how many years they have endured in the NFL. So chances are that Michael Pittman will eventually crack and eventually give the number 11 to Carson Wentz if Carson Wentz really wants it. I mean, if Carson Wentz is really sincere that he wants a new start, then that comes with a new number with it. So, but if it doesn't, if he wants number 11 still, then Michael Pittman has no choice, because otherwise his stats will go down, because Carson Wentz will not throw him the ball every time they take the field.
Look, here's how this works. This is actually so simplistic. The veteran comes in. He offers you money for his number. If you say no, some coach somewhere is going to come up to you and say, listen, you had an opportunity to make $50,000 to give up the number. Now, because you don't want to give up the number and we want to keep the quarterback happy, who's the most important player on the team, we're going to take the number from you because it's not your number. It's our number. So now you get nothing. Now you were a jerk. You get nothing. And I think that if Carson Wentz truly wants the number, he's just going to, that's what's going to happen. But I think you make a good point. If I'm Carson Wentz and I'm coming from Philadelphia where things melted down, I'm saying, I don't need to be number 11. You don't have to remember that guy. Just remember this guy. This guy's going to be number 2 or number 3 or number 1 or number 7 or number whatever. That's who this guy's going to be. Remember this guy, because this guy's going to be someone that you're never going to forget. So forget about number 11, but you're never going to forget about this guy, number whatever my new number is. That's my guess. What else you got today for news?
Yeah, last quick fire news rather for today. So it's about Colin Kaepernick. So Takia Spikes, a former teammate of Colin Kaepernick, says that he believes that Kaepernick deserves a statue at the Smithsonian. So here's a quote. I think Colin Kaepernick I truly believe that he deserves some type of monument, a statue in the Smithsonian, because he was not a slave to money. He put everything on the line, but I applaud him simply because he decided to take a stand. So, what's your
Okay.
take on that, John?
I listen. I applaud Colin Kaepernick for having the fortitude to make a statement. I think that was brave of him. Colin Kaepernick did not put everything on the line because, first of all, he got job offers after that happened. We're going to talk later on. I want to do a segment on how wrong the traditional media is all the time, but this is one of them. This is like a story came out, the first narrative came out, and nobody ever broke from it. But the reality of Colin Kaepernick is Colin Kaepernick opted out of his own contract in San Francisco. So he had another year left. Now, it is debatable on whether or not San Francisco was going to continue to keep Colin Kaepernick on the roster because they had lost faith in him. So it is very debatable on whether or not they were going to keep him. But Colin Kaepernick opted out of his own contract thinking there would be a market for him to free agency. When he got out to free agency, people said, we don't think you're a starter, but we're willing to give you an opportunity. He had an opportunity in Miami. He showed up in Miami wearing a Castro t-shirt. And if you know anything about Miami and the culture of Miami and the Cubans that escaped Castro, yes, they were very upset by the fact that he showed up there and showed up in the Miami Herald. I remember seeing the photo of Colin Kaepernick showing up wearing a Fidel Castro jersey. That's an idiot. Colin Kaepernick had an opportunity that Ray Lewis worked out for him in Baltimore. He was supposed to have a job in Baltimore. The owner was ready to sign him and give him an opportunity to compete against Joe Flacco. Colin Kaepernick's girlfriend came out and said that owners of NFL teams are nothing better. They are kin to slave owners. That's what she said. The owner of Baltimore decided, I do not want this toxic environment around me. Everyone else is already telling me this guy's bad news. Now his girlfriend's basically calling me and all my other associates slave owners. We don't want you here anymore. Colin Kaepernick went to Denver and had an opportunity to play in Denver. It didn't work out there because he wouldn't accept the money that they offered him. Colin Kaepernick went to Seattle. Seattle wanted to offer to bring him in to back up Russell Wilson. He wasn't interested in a backup job. He instead wanted to go someplace where he can compete to start. Colin Kaepernick did not sacrifice anything. Colin Kaepernick had all those opportunities. He either screwed them up or turned them down. So the narrative that Colin Kaepernick is some type of martyr over what he did is completely and totally false. It is a false narrative. So he doesn't deserve a statue for giving up anything. Now, if you want to applaud him for taking a stand in something that he believes in, I'll stand right next to you and say that that's fine. I do not take a side on whether or not Colin should have stood or kneeled or whatever. If you want to make a statement, you can make a statement. I would personally prefer if he did it in his own time. I don't think that any employee at any time should make a statement while they're working. During his own time, I have no problem with it. So, but that wasn't my decision. That was something that already happened. So Colin Kaepernick did what he did. Whatever. I'm fine with it. You did what you did. You made your statement. Maybe it was time for someone to step up and do it. But him saying that and suggesting that he lost his job and he lost his money because of it is totally and completely false. And it's not my opinion. It's not my opinion that it's false. It's just false. It's just a false narrative. It's one that we continue to beat to death in the mainstream media because the mainstream media is fucking lazy and they don't do any of their own work and they don't pay attention to the facts once they've said something. No one ever comes back out and goes, "Hey, I think we got that wrong," and then they apologize for it. So it's a touchy subject for me simply from that point because the only reason I joined up with What's on Sports and took on this entire project was for that reason. I'm so tired of reading the same nonsense that I know is not true. And not just with Colin Kaepernick. I'm talking about local media. And again, we're gonna do a whole segment on this later because it's bothering the hell out of me. But this is what they do. And so, no, if you're asking me if he deserves a statue, if those are the reasons, if the reasons that you're asking me if Colin Kaepernick deserves a statue, if you're asking me if he deserves a statue because of the fact that he lost money and he lost his job, I say no. I say it's bullshit. It's not true.
Yeah, he did have some. Yeah, he did have some opportunities afterwards. It's just a matter of him taking advantage of those opportunities. Yes. And apparently, the sad fact about Kaepernick, and the sad fact for a pro football player that is that there's not too many opportunities that goes around. So if you miss 1 or 2 seasons, somebody will take your position. Somebody will take your job. It's unlike basketball, wherein there's a ton of leagues outside the United States, or even baseball, and you can play in Korea, Japan, wheresoever. So in the NFL, it's different. So
well, look,
once
let me just jump in real quick here. You're saying that once you leave, you can't get back. once you're in, it's hard to stay. There's always somebody younger than you that's trying to take your job, younger and cheaper. So Colin Kaepernick put himself in this $12 million, $10 million range in his mind, and nobody was going to pay him that. So, and look, I don't blame him for not wanting to play for less money. I wouldn't want to do this job for less money. I wouldn't want to do any job for less money than I make now. I just wouldn't want to do it. And if I had a lot of money and I didn't need to do it, I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't. So I don't blame him for any of that. What I do take some umbrage with is the way that we paint the picture. So going back again, I don't blame him for anything. I take umbrage with the fact that we're saying that what he did was for X, Y, and Z, and that's not what happened. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to jump in there and say it. This is a subject I happen to be passionate about, and we probably should go to something else because I'm sure I'm just pissing off somebody inside the chat here. You know what? Let's go to something that a lot of things I'm taking umbrage with today. Let's go to something else that really bothers me.